It is time to begin, and I am happy to be with you again. I'm Jim Cathcart, and welcome to the Bitalium motivational meeting. This is the 1st of September. Now, September is the month in which I was born. Well, that makes it a very important time for me because I've designated my birth month as Rethinking Month. So every year I think about sort of a rebirth of the parts of my life that are working and the fading away of the parts of my life that are not working. So the way I think about it is rethinking is starting over again. It's thinking like a startup, like you were beginning a new business. If you were creating a new business today, and many of you are creating a new business, well, if you're starting a new business today, then everything is possible and everything is up for consideration. Meaning that whatever the topic is, whatever the product is that you're selling or the service, whether it's Bitalium or something else, all possibilities are on the table if you are thinking like a startup. So a startup, consider a group of young people that got together in someone's family room, and they're talking about a business they could form together. And they get all excited about it, and they start writing down their goals and their dreams and their plans. And they think, how could we do this? Well, they would be reaching for books of every type. They would be reaching out to get podcasts and webinars and find leaders and speakers and successful people that they could learn from. They would be eager to learn from every source. Well, that's what I try to do every September in my own life. Now, I've been a professional speaker, author, trainer, mentor for 43 years. 43 years. That's an entire generation. When I started as a professional speaker and trainer, I was 30 years old. Do the math. Yes, I am 73 years old, soon to be 74. And I'm still very much alive and vital and excited and eager to work and to grow and to learn like I was when I was 20 years old or when I was 30 years old. When I started my business, let me tell you the backstory so that you get a sense of how this all began for me. And you'll also understand my thinking as I'm going forward. So the only thing different, really profoundly different between me at 30 years old and me at 73 years old is that my body doesn't work quite as efficiently as it worked back then. And many, many, many of the things that I had dreamed about back then, I have done. So those are not my exciting future dreams now. They are memories and treasured experiences that I had, and I have new goals. You see, when you don't have new goals, you tend to relax your grip. You tend to drift back. You tend to take it easier. When you don't have new goals, something that is a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to go to work, a reason to pay attention, a reason to learn, to read a new book or to learn a new lesson or a new skill. When you don't have goals, then with no reason to work hard, most people don't. And so they back off. And when you back off, what happens is the muscles that would have been strong are no longer strong. They atrophy. In other words, they weaken. They're still there, but they're weak. And the longer they are weak, the less able you will be to revive them and make them strong again. So I know, as a man in his 70s who's still vitally interested in living a big, abundant life, and I think my greatest goals are still in front of me, I know I have to keep all the parts of my life strong and able. That means my mind, so I need to be constantly learning. I need to be learning about things I don't know about, things that confuse me, things that I find difficult. It means my body. So I need to be forcing myself into situations where I have to use my body in all its various ways to do things better. So that means using my eyes and my ears, my voice, my limbs. Yesterday it was hot here in Texas. I live in Austin, Texas, and that's the central southern part of the United States. And it was very hot, but I went out. I got plenty of water, and I went out for a run, and I ran and hiked through the hills here around my home for an hour and 7 minutes, and came back home and relaxed and cleaned up and got ready for a work day. But if I hadn't forced myself to go out and exercise, I wouldn't be able to stay as alert and as vital on the job as I am able to today. And I've made a habit of exercising. Now, see, the difference between highly successful people and people who are not successful is not just what they do. Highly successful people form the habit of doing what less successful people don't like to do. Highly successful people form the habit of doing things that less successful people don't like to do. What is it that less successful people don't like to do? They don't like to spend a lot of time reading and studying and getting ready, preparing. They don't like to spend time exercising when they don't feel like exercising. They don't like to learn ways to connect with people who are not like they are. So they tend to associate only with people that are greatly like themselves, and that shrinks their world to the size of their own personal capacity at any given time. They don't like to go places where they don't know other people. In other words, unsuccessful people don't like to do the same things that successful people don't like to do. But successful people form the habit of doing the things they don't like to do so that it helps them to grow and expand and improve and stay fully on top of their game. Many years ago, I met Dr. Tony Alessandra. Dr. Alessandra was a college professor at the University of San Diego in California in the USA. And he was working as a college professor, and he had written a book called Non-Manipulative Selling, which means selling in a way that you don't trick people, where a way that you're more honest and well-intentioned toward them. Well, I was speaking at a conference in San Diego, and I was working as a professional trainer. Dr. Alessandra was a college professor speaking at the same conference. We met there, and we became instant friends. And he said, "Tell me what you do." And I said, "Well, I teach sales and marketing, and I fly around the country, and I give speeches at conventions, and I do training programs in companies." And he says, "How much do you make doing that?" And I told him what I was earning, which was a lot of money to me at the time. And he said, "Wow, that's a lot more money than I make as a college professor teaching sales and marketing." And I said, "Well, maybe you should get into my business." And he said, "Yes." He said, "I like that idea." He said, "But I have a great deal of security here at the university. I've got a guaranteed job. Every day I go to the same classroom. I know exactly what I will be paid this year. And if I stay here for a long time over the years, they will increase my salary and give me more credentials, and I'll be able to stay here and have a secure career." I said, "Or you can do what I'm doing, start your own business and be a professional speaker and trainer and consultant and fly around the world going to conventions and meetings, all over the country or all around the world." He said, "Jim, you're making almost twice what I make in annual income. I want to do what you're doing." So we started collaborating, and he said, "I will teach you everything I know about sales and marketing as a college professor if you will teach me the things you know about building an independent business as a sales consultant and a trainer. So we became good friends. Then we started collaborating. Then we wrote a book together called The Business of Selling. The year we wrote that book was 1984. And we met in 1979. And we became good friends and we started collaborating. And in 1980, we formed a business together. And then we started sharing leads. In other words, I would have a customer hire me to do the training, and then I would refer them to Dr. Alessandra as their next trainer that they should bring into their company. And he would do a program for somebody in the college community, and then he would refer me to that client, and I would come in next. So over time, we grew our business, and then in 1984, we published this book, The Business of Selling. Well, the business of selling is not the part that involves face-to-face selling. The business of selling is the planning, the study, the preparation, the target marketing, the networking, the back-end work that allows you in sales to be good face-to-face with people so that you generate more sales, okay? So we wrote this book on the business of selling, and it was published by a major publisher. Look at these photos. The top photo is him. The bottom photo is me that many years ago. Lots of black hair, rosy cheeks, wearing glasses. That's a long time ago. But I was rereading this book today in preparation for this program. And the ideas in this book are still valid today. In other words, I could teach what's in that book directly, and I wouldn't have to update it much because the principles we were teaching back then still apply to you and me today. You see, sales skill involves the ability to communicate with other people, to gain their trust, to understand their needs, to solve their problem, to convince them to take action on solving the problem with you and to pay you for it. And then following through to assure that they get the benefit that they thought they were buying from you. That's selling. The business of selling is making yourself knowledgeable, skilled, caring, disciplined, and organized as a salesperson so that when you are selling, you do a much better job of it. So Tony and I formed a business together, and then we ultimately moved into the same office, and we hired a small staff, and we started growing our business, and our business grew rapidly. Soon, we were each doing more than 100 seminars a year, teaching sales to people all over the United States and then ultimately outside the country. But we were each doing 100, so 200 plus seminars every year in only the first few years of us doing business. And then I went on to become a member of the board of directors of the National Speakers Association, which is a group of professional speakers that was originally based in the USA and is now a global organization, still based here, but with organizations in countries all over the world. I became the national president of that. Tony Alessandra formed his own separate business a few years later and now does psychological assessments and professional assessments online for many of the world's largest training organizations. Tony and I are still best friends today. But years later, after writing The Business of Selling, we rewrote the book under this title, Be Your Own Sales Manager. Let me explain why we wrote under that title. In 1970, long ago, I got married. I was 23 years old, and I met my wife-to-be. We got married in July of 1970. So July 25th of this year, we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. Wow. Um, and we're still happily married, thankfully. Um, but in 1970, I got married and I wanted to get a job where I could make a lot of money. And I looked around and I looked at all the different options and I thought, okay, where do people make a lot of money? And I figured maybe banking. I had worked as a clerk in a bank and I thought banking might be good. But then I realized that most of the bankers didn't make much money. The bank had a lot of money and managed a lot of money, but the bankers themselves weren't very wealthy. So I thought, okay, who makes a great deal of money? Well, people in real estate make a lot of money. The people who are selling land and houses and investing, in developing land, and people who are involved in the stock market make a lot of money. So people who are managing money or in the economic field for a profession, they're making a lot of money. And people in real estate are making a lot of money. So I thought, okay, I'll go into those fields. And the first job I got was selling investment products. I was selling mutual funds and life insurance. And mutual funds, of course, are stocks and bonds bought in a group, and people buy a share of that group of stocks and bonds. So I was a young 23-year-old, rosy-cheeked, black-haired, baby-faced salesperson going door to door in Little Rock, Arkansas, in the southern United States, selling people investment accounts. I didn't know what I was talking about. All I knew was what my manager had taught me to memorize. He gave me a sales script and he said, say these words when you call on people and get them to buy. So I went from door to door to door, greeting people and using my sales and my memorized sales script, just like I was reciting a poem or acting in a play. And I made a few sales, but not many, because people could tell, one, I didn't know much about what I was selling. Two, they could tell I was saying things I had memorized instead of things I truly understood in my head and heart. So the people didn't buy from me very often. A few of them did, but not enough for me to stay in that business for long. I went to my boss, my sales manager, and I said, I'm struggling. Help me make more sales. He said, Jim, just make more sales calls. Now, think with me. If you're not good at selling and you're making 50 sales calls for every one sale that you generate, making 100 sales calls will make how many sales? 2. Because if you're not very good at selling, making more and more and more sales calls won't generate many more sales. The problem is not the number of sales calls in that case. It's the quality of the sales calls. In other words, the nature of the communication between the seller and the buyer, the quality of that discussion, the degree to which the salesperson is genuinely helping them solve a problem or fill a need. So my real problem wasn't the number of sales calls I was making. It was my skill at being a salesperson. Well, I didn't know any better, so I just made more and more sales calls. And ultimately, I gave up. I said, I'm sorry, this is not the field for me. I'm not cut out to be a salesperson. I quit. So I quit that job and I went through a series of part-time jobs. And I was working as a clerk in a grocery store, sacking groceries for my friend's father. My friend Sam, his father owned a grocery store, a supermarket. And he said, while you're looking for a job, you can work here. And so I worked there and I unloaded trucks and boxcars and I stacked shelves and I sacked groceries and carried them out to people's cars, and I was making a very tiny hourly wage. And I was unhappy. I was newly married. I had a baby at home. Uh, I was fat. I weighed 50 pounds more than I weigh here. I weighed, in the USA, we measure in pounds. I weighed at that time 200 pounds. This is 140, and I weighed 144. So I weighed 50 plus pounds more than I weigh right now. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I never exercised. I didn't study because I wasn't in school any longer. And so I wasn't learning anything new, but I was going out and making sales calls and failing as a salesperson. So I went to work in the grocery store, and I was thinking, I was sad and I felt bad about myself. And I thought, I need to find a better job. I've got to do something. And so I saw an opportunity to take a job as a clerk in a government agency. The agency was the Little Rock, Arkansas. That Little Rock's the city. Arkansas is the state. The Little Rock, Arkansas Urban Renewal Agency. That was housing authority, the government agency that provided housing for low-income people and people in poverty. So I took a job as a clerk for a very small salary, and the man I was assisting didn't need help. I was his helper, and he didn't need help. So as a government worker, I was bored to tears every day. I had a job that required no effort. He didn't need me. And so I sat at my desk and I read books about urban renewal and housing authority. Didn't find that interesting. I read other books. I read the Bible cover to cover at work in 3 months. I read all kinds of books. And I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. I wanted to have a career that would be rewarding and exciting. But it wasn't going to be in the field I was involved in at that time. And I didn't believe I could be good at selling. So one day I was sitting there, and in the next room, there was a radio program playing. And I heard the voice of a man named Earl Nightingale, who was on 900 radio stations around the world. And Earl Nightingale said on the radio that day, if you will spend 1 extra hour every single day studying your chosen field, 1 extra hour every day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, so that allows weekends free and 2 weeks a year for holiday, 5 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, over 5 years is 1,250 hours extra learning. If you spend 1 hour extra every day studying your chosen field for 5 years, 1,250 hours on one subject, anybody could become a leading expert in that subject by doing that. And that was the first time in my life I ever realized I was capable of being an expert on something, of being somebody that could make a difference, because I didn't have a college degree. I had been to college for 2 years and then dropped out. I had never been an athlete. I had never been highly intelligent. I didn't pass a intelligence test and get great scores. In school, I was an average student. My father was a telephone repairman, and my mother was a housewife, so no one in my family had college education. No one was encouraging me to learn and become successful. So I expected my life would be very ordinary and unimportant. But then this man on the radio said, if I would spend 1 extra hour every day studying one chosen field, in 5 years, I could become a leading expert in that field. And I thought, I have a job that requires almost nothing from me. I have almost 8 hours a day. So if I spent 1 or 2 extra hours every day studying something I'm interested in and care about, what would I study? I didn't know. I didn't have Bitalium. I didn't have an opportunity that's in a field that most people don't understand yet, cryptocurrency. So I couldn't have focused on that. And by the way, that would have been a great choice for me back then. But that didn't exist. I thought, what do I want to know about? And then one day it occurred to me what I wanted to do, what really felt right to me, was I wanted to do what the man on the radio was doing. I wanted to help people succeed, but I was not successful myself. I had never been successful. I knew nothing about how to succeed. But I thought, well, if I could do anything, and I want to do that, then maybe I should start studying psychology, business, communication, interpersonal communication, marketing, sales. So I decided, yes, that's what I'll do. I will study self-improvement, personal success, and I will study it many hours a week. And so I became fanatically dedicated to studying personal development. I bought all the top books at the time, which were only a few. I bought Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I bought How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I read The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I got Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude by W. Clement Stone. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I heard a recording from Earl Nightingale, the man on the radio. It was on records back then, and the recording was called The Strangest Secret. And the message of that was, whatever you think about most, you will become. So I started studying this field, and in a short period of time, I got to where I knew quite a bit. And then I joined the Junior Chamber of Commerce, the JCs, which was a civic organization, social club that did projects in the community to make the community better. And then they would teach leadership training in their meetings every week. So I joined this local group of young people, and I was studying how to set goals, how to communicate better, how to plan, how to organize, how to sell, how to motivate yourself, how to motivate other people. And that led me to start studying psychology. And I never did study clinical medical psychology. I studied what's called applied behavioral science, which is just basically how to be more successful in life and how to get yourself to do what is needed. So I became fanatically dedicated to studying that. And in a short period of time, after attending a few training programs, I was asked to lead the discussion at the next training program. And that went well. And then I was asked if I would host a training program and be the person in charge of the meeting. And so I did that, and I got other people's books, and I would read from the book and then help the other people learn the concepts that were in that book. This went on for 2 years. I attended 400 meetings in 2 years after my working day. None of this was done during the workday. This was all on weekends or at nights or on holidays. I attended 400 meetings in 2 years where I was leading discussions and teaching these concepts that I wanted to learn more about, because people tend to teach what they most want to learn. And I was learning right along with the other students. Well, I became pretty good at what I was doing. 400 meetings, so would anybody, right? So 400 meetings in 2 years, I became very good at conducting training programs, and I became popular, and other people started hiring me for pay to come into their companies and do training programs. A couple of years later, I was able to go out on my own and start my own business. I started my own business in 1974. In 1977, I became a full-time professional speaker and trainer, teaching training courses. At first, I was teaching other people's material, and then over time, I developed my own material. In 1979, I met Dr. Tony Alessandra, the college professor. The next year, we co-authored a book. The next year, we wrote another book. Then we wrote the book, Be Your Own Sales Manager. And that book, the company that I had left because they didn't teach me anything except words to say, the company where I was selling mutual funds and life insurance, the one I left because all they would teach me is make more sales calls and say these words, that company bought 1,000 copies of this book from my new business partner, Dr. Tony Alessandra. They didn't realize that they were the reason I wrote the book. I wrote the book because I realized that as a salesperson, when I struggled and failed, the reason I failed was not because I couldn't sell. It was because I didn't know how. And I was being trained in the wrong methods. So I took what my company had been teaching me, which was not enough, and I filled in all the gaps with new learning, and that became the book. And then that company, ironically, bought 1,000 copy of that book from my business partner and never knew that they were the reason I wrote the book. So, the world comes together in a very nice way over time. Well, the reason I tell you that whole story is that here I am today at 73 years old. I've delivered 3,300 paid speeches and seminars all over the world. I've been paid millions of dollars to do these speeches and seminars, the collective amount over time. I've flown first class to some of the finest places in the world, stayed in the most luxurious resorts, appeared on some of the most prestigious platforms. I have a TED Talk, if you know TED, TED, Technology, Entertainment, and Design. That's a company that has videos, short video presentations on YouTube that are viewed all over the world. I have a video on there. The message is how to believe in yourself. And my TED Talk is in the top 1% of all the TED videos in the world. It has received 2,100,000 views. Now think with me for a moment. The title of that little 8-minute talk is how to believe in yourself. When I began as a salesperson at age 30, I didn't believe in myself. My company didn't teach me how to believe in myself. They didn't teach me how to sell. They thought they were teaching me how to sell, but my sales manager was not a good sales manager. So what I came to realize over time is that we have two jobs when we're in sales. One, we have the job of being the salesperson. Two, we have the job of being our own sales manager. In other words, in the final analysis, you are your own sales manager. You're the only person who can get you out of bed in the morning, get yourself to study, get yourself to learn, get yourself to listen and care about what other people have to say. You're the only person. who can truly get yourself to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, even if you don't feel like doing it yet. So no matter whether you're sales manager or the person you report to or the owner of your company does a good job of managing you or not, you are the one who's ultimately responsible for managing yourself. And once I realized that, I started learning those concepts and then teaching other people. And so it led me to where I started becoming successful financially from what I was doing. I developed good sales skills and I became not only very skilled at selling, but I looked forward to selling every day. I enjoyed selling. I was eager to get to work each day and make more sales contacts. Whereas in the previous job, I had dreaded every sales contact. I hated selling because I didn't understand selling and I didn't believe in myself. Today, I have been president of the National Speakers Association, inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. I've received the Cathcart Award, which is what this statue is. That's the Lifetime Achievement Award for the National Speakers Association that is named after the founder of the association. I've delivered, as I mentioned, 3,300 paid speeches and received millions of dollars in speaking fees. I've written and published 20 books. My latest book is titled The Self-Motivation Handbook, and it's also in a different edition called The Power Minute. This book is how to get yourself to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. I wrote the book Relationship Selling. I wrote The Acorn Principle. I've written 20 books. Now think about this. When I was a clerk in that government agency, I was 30 years old. I was fat. I was not physically fit. I didn't have a college degree. By the way, I still do not have a college degree, but I am a professor in the executive MBA program at the School of Management at California Lutheran University. In other words, I'm a college professor and I don't have a college degree. I have written books that have been published as college textbooks. I had never given a speech when I chose to go into this field, and I had nothing worthwhile to say. So starting with virtually nothing as a newly married, lowly paid clerk, I built a career that now in its 43rd year has been abundantly rewarding and meaningful to me. I am friends with the people who back in the early days were my heroes and mentors, the ones whose books I was buying. I have become friends with those people and gotten to know them. I'm not telling you this so that you will be impressed with me. I'm telling you this to illustrate the fact that without any advanced skills or any special relationships with people who could open doors for me, I've been able to grow and sustain a very abundant life. And you can do exactly the same. You can do exactly the same. You say, yeah, but Jim, you were in the United States and I'm not in the United States. You had different opportunities. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. There were things that were possible here that would be much more difficult in other countries. But today, the world is connected like never before. When I needed information, I had to seek it out basically by hand. I had to go to a public library, or I had to find a person who had a book that they would lend to me, or I had to find a person that would take the time to teach me. Today, you have programs like this one You have books that are not only available in bookstores, not only available online to order them, but they're available digitally and they're available in audio so that through your own telephone, through your own laptop computer, you can access learning that no one ever in history before you was able to access. My grandson loves music, and he was taught to play keyboard, but he wanted to learn, after it learned the basics of playing the keyboard, he wanted to learn more. And so he got an iPad and he put it on his piano and he went to YouTube online and he looked up the songs he wanted to learn and sat at the keyboard and learned them from the video online. When I wanted to learn to play guitar, and I play guitar fairly well today, and I've been a professional guitarist and singer for the last 10 or 15 years. Well, when I wanted to learn to play guitar, I had to go find a music store and buy sheet music or find a music teacher and go to classes to learn it. Today, you can learn it through your own telephone. So your opportunities, no matter what government restrictions might be on you or what economic situation might be the case in your country, your opportunities are much, much greater than mine were when I started out. Wow. So that means the possibilities of you becoming wealthy, the possibilities of you becoming very successful, respected by others, of you building a career that will make you proud and make you feel good inside, of you building a career that's meaningful and satisfying, are excellent. You can do this. You can do this today. See, the world also today, despite what the news media would tell you, is much more accepting and tolerant of differences in people than ever before. If you listen only to the news, they would say, people are racist, people are sexist, people are mean, people are greedy, people are corrupt. Everything's bad. No, people are fundamentally good. And today, people with disabilities, people with disfigurement, something that would make them look shocking at first to other people, people with speech difficulties, people with hearing problems, whatever, people of all types and all races are more widely accepted worldwide than ever before in the history of humankind. You say, oh no, Jim, people, no. Don't listen to the news so much. They have a reason to promote their agenda. Look around you. I have friends today in my field, professional speaking and training. I have one friend, a man named W. Mitchell, who, when he was a teenager, he had a motorcycle accident. And the gasoline from the motorcycle poured over him and caught on fire. It burned his face completely off. It burned his hands to where he has no fingers. He had on a helmet, and so it preserved, his hair was preserved, but the rest of him was melted in the fire. He survived, but he was hideous to look at. And he went through many, many, many surgeries to finally get to where he looked almost normal, but not, clearly the instant you see him, he was badly, badly, badly burned. Most of his nose is gone and, his lips are shaped differently. But Mitchell went on from that accident to building a career, building a business with some friends. He ultimately became the mayor of his city. Now, when I was growing up, when I was a child, people who had been badly burned, their career was over because everyone would run from them. Everyone would look at them as not being capable. W. Mitchell went on to not only do the things I told you about, but he learned to fly an airplane. And then one day, in the worst of tragedies, his airplane crashed on takeoff and broke his spine, which meant he would have to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. So, in addition to his other problems, he had the additional problems of not being able to walk and being confined to a wheelchair. After he recovered, still in the wheelchair, Mitchell asked, "What can I still do?" Instead of looking at what he could no longer do, he looked at what he could still do. And he said, one thing I can do is I can still talk, I can still think, I can still learn, I can still communicate. So he became a radio host. He had a good voice. And so he got a job that didn't require him to be on camera. And he was on the radio every day. And he built a very successful radio show. And then he made a life-changing decision. In the late 1980s, he chose to become a professional motivational speaker and to travel the world giving speeches at conventions in a wheelchair after being so badly burned. He built a brilliant career, was inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame many years later. He became the international president of the Global Speakers Federation. He owns a home in Santa Barbara, California, on the island of Maui in Hawaii, and he has a home in Australia. This after tragedies that would have ended almost anyone's career prospects for the rest of their life. I've seen him on a dance floor at a convention, dancing from his wheelchair, dancing with a woman that was standing there holding onto his hand, what's left of his hand. So the world is so much more accepting of people with disabilities. It's also accepting of people with different races. People in the United States complain, oh, this country is racist. No, it's not. This country has had Black people in every major position of authority or success in the entire country. President of the United States, Secretary of State, most popular person on television, successful movie stars, richest person in the country. You know, all of these positions have been held by people of different races. And that's not just true for the United States. That's becoming more and more true worldwide. Yes, there is still racism, but it is not the kind of problem that the news media would have you believe. You can succeed no matter what your race, no matter what your country, no matter what your age, no matter what your physical disability might be, as long as you can think, you can speak and communicate, you can have a career of substantial influence and meaning. One of the greatest scientists of the last generation was Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking couldn't even speak without the assistance of a machine. And he was confined to a wheelchair, couldn't move for most of his life. He had to use eye movement to type, looking into a camera. And yet he wrote books that influenced the entire world. So whatever you think your limitations have been, trust me, those aren't the limitations you think they are. Of course, they are considerations you have to wrestle with and overcome, or at least deal with. But it's not what happened to you that matters the most. It's what you do about what happens to you. My career, I had it easy compared to W. Mitchell, compared to many of my other friends who have had other types of difficulties. But, I have grown a career, gone broke and lost lots and lots of money, been betrayed by people I was in business with. I have gone through difficulties where large contracts that I was depending on to pay my staff and pay my bills were canceled at the last minute. And I had to pay out of my own pocket the salaries of my employees. I've had many, many negative occurrences, but overall, my life has been absolutely sweet because I decided early on to be my own manager, to take charge of my own life, and to grow a career that would be satisfying to me because it was valuable to other people. So, what I'm attempting to do in this series of webinars with you is to give you the faith in yourself to believe and to realize that you can have a rich, abundant, rewarding life. And the best way to do it is to continually look for ways to be valuable to other people, to constantly ask yourself, how could I help somebody else? What could I do for other people that they would value enough that they would pay me for it? You see, it's not greedy to want to be paid or to make a profit. That's simply the way life works. Some people tell me, well, Jim, I don't care about money. I just want to help people. Well, nice. But if you don't have much money, you can't help many people. If you're broke, if you're not making enough money to generate extra money, then you're very limited in the number of people you can help. If you want to help people, earn a profit by doing it and help as many people as possible and do everything you can to become as wealthy as you possibly can. Be very careful and very intelligent about the way you use the little bit of money that comes in. Because what I have found is that the most generous people in the world are the most wealthy people in the world. You say, no, 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 wealthy people are greedy. No, some wealthy people are greedy. Some wealthy people don't care about others. But most wealthy people are generous. If you look at the major charitable causes around the world, the organizations that need money donated in order to stay alive, look at the sources of their income. Some of those are funded by government dollars. In other words, tax dollars are taken and then given to them by some government agency. But the vast majority, like 70% or greater of the revenues that keep charitable organizations alive, are personal donations given by individuals or foundations that are owned by individuals who have become wealthy. Look at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates is the wealthiest man in the USA at this time. And his foundation gives millions and millions and millions of dollars to good causes around the world. Warren Buffett is one of the wealthiest investors in the world, and he is also one of the most generous. You can look again and again at the wealthy, wealthy people in the world, and the vast majority of those people are good people. So if you want to help other people, help yourself first to become safe and successful. Then teach other people how to be safe and successful. Teach other people how to grow their own cryptocurrency account, how to invest their money in other ways, how to invest their skills, their talent, their time, their life in other ways that will grow their wealth. And the more people you help become safe and wealthy, the wealthier and safer you will become. The best way you can make the world a better place is make your world better so that you're strong enough to help, and then help. Reach out and help. Because if you don't take care of you, you won't be able to help me. If I don't take care of me, I'm unable to help you. Does that make sense to you? If that makes sense to you, raise your hand. There you go. Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you. Yes. See, what I've been talking about started out with me as a fat, young government clerk wondering, what am I going to do with my life? And then I started reading books by other people. And then I started applying what I learned. And then I became very dedicated, fanatically dedicated to making my own life work so that I'd have something to offer other people. And as I did, I met other people like Dr. Alessandra, and I started writing books. And today, with 20 books that are being translated and sold around the world in different languages, and 3,300 speeches and seminars that I've done in countries all over the world, I'm able to help many, many people, but only because I took the time to take charge of my own life and be my own manager. No matter who you report to, you're the person that has to manage you. And the better job you do of that, the better you will make your world and the world the rest of us live in. I think it's your obligation and mine to live our life as well as we are capable of living it and to help other people live their lives well. Because if you do that, your life will cause you to smile very broadly and deeply at the end of each day. You'll place your head on the pillow and be thankful that you had yet another day to go and help other people. I really appreciate your tuning in today and being here for this. If you have some questions, please type them into the group chat. I'll be happy to answer your questions for a couple of minutes, and then we'll conclude today's program, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Okay? If you have any quick questions, I'll pause for a moment and give you a chance. Thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. You're welcome. I appreciate it, Camille, Juan, Dimitri, Miguelo. You're welcome. Okay, I'll let it go at that. Thank you again, Juan. And I will see you in 2 weeks, and we will explore how to make you more successful in selling. Bye, everyone.